There is quite a bit of news to cover in this video, so let's get right to it. I mentioned some time ago that world leaders were preparing for something catastrophic when it was discovered that they were preparing top-secret bunkers for the political and wealthy elite. The disaster that governments are and have been preparing for is one that will have dire consequences for civilization. So let's examine the facts that are known at this time and see if we can connect the dots. Let's begin with a video clip from 2015, which may explain why trillions of taxpayers' money has mysteriously disappeared. This shelter, located in Europe, is just one of many shelters that have been built for the world's elite. So if you're afraid of the end of the world and have a few millions of dollars to spend, you're welcome to secure a place at the Europa One shelter. If not, at least now you know such a place exists. Something strange is happening right here in the United States. There appears to be room for 10,000 of the world's elite to step into an underground world beneath Denver. Huge drills have dug underground bases below the Rocky Mountains, which are connected to Washington by high-speed trains. Giant nuclear-powered drills, similar to those used by the British and French to carve out the English Channel, are now glazing the walls of underground facilities, fortifying them for future use. The reason for such a complex system of bunkers has nothing to do with a nuclear World War III, but rather a natural disaster the likes of which this present world has never witnessed. This event is apocalyptic and involves the arrival of Planet X. The magnetic field created by the passage of this planetary system could cause a massive debris field to rain down on the world. Something epic is about to occur that the elite have been preparing for since the discovery of this system back in the early 1980s by the IRIS telescope. First, its discovery was announced to the world via 2 major newspapers, and then it was suddenly suppressed, and no government agency was allowed to discuss it again. So what can most people do to prepare who aren't among the privileged few? Will they wait until the government makes a nationwide announcement and then look up into the sky to see what's coming? Will they wait until a series of nuclear weapons are detonated or a viral pandemic becomes widespread before finally becoming motivated to prepare? But by that time, it will have been too late to make any preparations. There have been unusual reports of strange sounds and vibrations coming from underground in the past 20 years. Almost continuously, reports have come from ordinary people in many townships across the heartland of the United States and in southern Canada. Listen as residents of Windsor, Ontario, talk about these unusual sounds that are ongoing.
That we began hearing and feeling a very loud vibration outside. We really didn't acknowledge it at the time, but a year and a half later, the vibrations and the rumblings have become so intense that it's disrupted our daily lives. The rumblings began almost immediately in the morning and proceed throughout the evening, getting stronger in intensity.
I live in South Windsor. We started hearing some of the rumbling noises in about February. And then in time, I started noticing greater frequency and patterns, particularly in the evenings, where this noise was occurring. And it really culminated in an incident at the end of May 31st. I was watching a basketball game, and it was incredibly loud. The vibrations, you could feel them coming through the house and through the windows. We went out to see what it was, and it was just so intense. And as a result of that, I got involved. I contacted the Ministry of the Environment to find out what the issue was and to find out what they knew about it, and made some further efforts to get the federal government to provide some monitoring equipment.
Back in March, I started to receive one or two phone calls about some consistent rumblings and vibrations in neighborhoods in and around the ward, specifically around Rankin and Taunton and other areas like that. At the time, I probably would have thought it was just some sort of isolated construction project in the area, but it then escalated quite significant over the next month and a half, 2 months or so. I started hearing it from all over the western part of my ward, Ward 10, and then started to hear a lot more from residents all over the southern part of Windsor and west parts of Windsor and LaSalle. So I then, at this point, decided to get together with some residents, visit their homes, and start pinpointing on a map exactly where these vibration rumblings, noises are coming from. Last night, around between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., I visited those homes, visited some areas, and it was a real strong vibration that had come from the ground. It was a synthetic noise. It's really there.
You personally experienced it?
I personally experienced it. I sat and the person in the house at the time shut off the air conditioner, shut off the furnace, shut off the water main, shut off the electricity, and turned everything off and around the house. And if you put your palm to the hardwood floor, you could feel some sort of synthesizing a little bit of a noise vibration. It's very weak. It grows a little bit, but it's consistent, and it goes back down. It's real. It's there. It's present. And I think that this issue needs to be taken much more serious. There needs to be an investigation. It's out there. It's getting complaints are rising, and it started with 1 or 2 people, and now it's gotten to hundreds and hundreds of people across the southern west part of the city, and even bordering into the south.
So as you can see, there are difficult questions that we must ask ourselves. Did you know that there is a joint venture of the National Security Agency, the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Center for Disease Control, which has been created to facilitate an expansive tunnel system throughout the South to protect us from nuclear, biological, and chemical attack? These tunnels will also serve as conduits for national defense to move troops, supplies, and armor between strategic locations. Here is something that is worth noting. The tunnels are already in place. They are reportedly using a 6-month time frame to clear out the facilities and reconfigure them for supply depots, communication hubs, and pre-processing centers. Now, you know there are going to be some who are going to think this is all crazy nonsense. These are the same people who spend little or no time researching this. The same is true with respect to Planet X. It's easy to say it doesn't exist if you haven't done any serious research. My suggestion to those who know or feel that something just isn't right is to use the internet while it is still available for your use. There are many books and publications that can teach you how to construct fortified bunkers and at the same time show you how to prepare food and water supplies in a natural manner. Some of you will say, what is the use of preparing? We're all going to die anyway. That is an easy out for those who are not prepared and have no intention of doing so. But for the rest of us, being prepared to face any potential disaster is of the utmost importance, as it could happen at any given time. Every disaster, regardless of the impact, teaches us a lesson, that it is better to have a clear understanding of what to do when disaster strikes than to be wandering in the wilderness with no concept of how to survive. The construction of underground facilities may very well be related to what is happening in the sky. Many of you are convinced that another sun is appearing. There are many photos and videos that are providing ample evidence to support this. Regardless, there are some in the community who do not want to talk about this and are doing everything which is humanly possible to keep you from discovering the truth. One of the ways in which they have tried to hide this is through the continuous use of chemtrails. If you spend any time in the outdoors, especially in areas that are heavily populated, you will see the trails zigzag across the horizon prior to sunset or just before sunrise. The spraying of our atmosphere will continue as long as the vast majority of us have our faces glued to our cell phones or a television screen, or for as long as the mainstream media keeps it under wraps. It doesn't matter what we call this thing, a second sun, a brown dwarf star, Nibiru, the red or blue Kachina of Hopi prophecy. It just doesn't matter because it is there. They are attempting to keep it hiding from view. I know this because I have seen it firsthand. They spray chemtrails early in the morning and again in the evening. Not every day, but when it is needed. They even make an X to mark the spot. Whatever has entered into our existence, its presence is being felt across the solar system. What it will do and when it will make its presence known is a matter of interpretation. But it must be something extraordinary, otherwise the people in authority wouldn't be going to such extremes to keep its presence hidden for so many years. So, my friends, keep your eyes open and focused on your surroundings. Here is something very interesting that I just recently discovered about Nibiru, which is known in ancient literature as the planet of the crossing. It is now apparent that Nibiru is no longer a theory. Scientists and educators across the globe have come to the conclusion that its existence is real, and that it poses concerns for the inhabitants of planet Earth. This may seem whimsical to some of you, especially those who cannot grasp the concept of a Planet X. But for a number of years now, there have been a series of subtle hints given to the public, warning them of what is to come. This has been accomplished through means of Hollywood productions, commercials, and television documentaries. Now it seems even cartoons are providing an outlet for informing people. Most of you may be familiar with the cartoon series called Scooby-Doo. It's been in syndication for a long time. Well, as you will see in this video clip, the producers of this animated show have something to tell the world. Take a look.
Something's been bugging me about our little underwater escapade. There's a lot about that adventure I wish we could forget.
Amen to that.
But the weirdest part of all was what the late Abigail Gluck whispered.
Like I'll say, a crazy mummified corpse whispering Nibiru is creepy times 10.
It gets creepier. I googled it and found a lot. Namely this. Nibiru is a planet listed in the writings of Zechariah Sitchin, particularly his book The 12th Planet. According to Sitchin's interpretation of Babylonian religious texts, a giant planet called Nibiru passes by Earth every 3,600 years and allows its sentient inhabitants to interact with humanity. These beings, which Sitchin identified with the Anunnaki of Sumerian myth, would become humanity's first gods. My favorite internet encyclopedia says there's supposed to be a collision. The Nibiru collision is a disastrous encounter between the Earth and a large planetary object. Believers in this doomsday event usually refer to this object as Planet X, or Nibiru.
The doomsday event?
Regardless of the intent of the producers, there is certainly a story to convey here. Although this is a cartoon watched by millions of children around the world, there appears to be a serious overtone incorporated into the animated episode. Down in Antarctica, there is another story waiting to be told. All of a sudden, government officials, military brass, even predominant members of the world's religions are going there. But why? What is so important that requires their immediate attention and concern? There's even some speculation that people are being evacuated. If this should prove to be true, then something very disconcerting is taking place on the frozen continent. But there is one thing that is a certainty that has significant implications. The crack in the Larsen C ice shelf continues to grow and expand. There are now only 10 miles of ice that separate this from the open sea. This is not the first time that Antarctica has been on the verge of losing a significant portion of its ice sheet. But the Larsen C ice collapse will most likely change the landscape of the continent. It will allow the glacial ice to enter the ocean faster and accelerate the pace of sea level rise. This is because Larsen C is 10 times bigger than its nearby ice shelf, and therefore will have a more devastating impact on Earth's ecological balance. As you know, Skywatch Media has been posting a series of images and video clips captured by Skywatchers from all over the world. They are posted on our Facebook page, which was created primarily for this purpose. Keeping you up to date is very important, so what I would like to do in my upcoming presentations is to include a few images and videos that were posted on our Facebook page that you may not have had an opportunity to view yet. So let's take a look at what is happening at this time. The photo captures from Kent, England are absolutely amazing in that the individual who was photographing the sun over Magat Beach had no idea what he had captured, and he sent these images to a friend who is an astronomical observer for his analysis, and they were then published to our Facebook page for review. There is something that is important to emphasize with these captures that disputes anything that a debunker may throw at you regarding their authenticity. And that has to do with the criteria for labeling an object as a lens flare. And this is what you need to know. Lens flares do not reflect as an object in a water landscape. As you can see in this image, the second sun, Nemesis, whatever this may be, is clearly reflecting in the water. A lens flare cannot do that because it does not exist. It is an illusion of the camera lens. Furthermore, this was photographed in the outdoors, so there were no obstructions that could cause a double reflection of the sun. Now, if we go to the FAA webcam capture from Alaska of the red planet, or the red dwarf star as it may actually be, not only is this object rotating, suggesting that it is in fact in orbit around our sun, but incredibly the object is captured behind the cloud formations and is even visible behind an aerospray trail. Now, have you ever heard of a lens flare that can do that? I haven't. It just isn't physically possible for that to occur. The camera does not have that capability. So what we have here are genuine captures of an incoming system. Okay, so
now what I'm going to show you here is the approximate position of the Nibiru and its 7 planets coming in. Because this is apparently a genuine photograph, in the center there with this red with the black dot and the what appears to be a planet up to the left. It's coming in, this photograph, what I'm going to show you on Stellarium, is set up for Hobart, Tasmania, south of Australia, and you'll see Jupiter. Now if you just notice around here the stars aren't that numerous, and I think what's happening is that the light coming from the distant stars are being absorbed into the rear of the magnetic field because the light is being bent. I mean, light is bending in space all the time. In the old Cathay ray tubes, which is the old television sets, that's how a television set works. You bend the light electrons coming at the screen. So I'll now go over to Stellarium and show you the same scene basically. So there's Jupiter there. I'll pull that over. So in this area here is where I was showing you. Now I'm going to show you what happens when we get out and away from that spot that I've determined where this is going to be, and you'll see how the light comes on. And then as we go back towards where I think that the Nibiru object is the lights go out, so I go back again, the lights go on, so the light is being bent and absorbed by the Nibiru object. So we'll go up now towards Taurus, which is up here, and you'll see the light comes on again. There's Taurus there. The light's going off and on. So possibly this hasn't been noticed by the authorities. I'll just go up again. And she comes on again. Come back down. Jupiter just goes off screen. Now we'll go left and right. Give it some perspective. Light comes on, off. The light comes on again. So it would appear to be around this area here. Not to say that it is, but it appears to be that's where the effect is occurring. Now, it could be behind Jupiter itself. It could be over this area here, but somewhere in this general vicinity. So that's just a little update on what I've been able to determine could be a possible indication where it is coming in from. And of course, Castor and Pollux down here is the twins, first and second coming. So I'll talk to you later.
Planet X special bulletin. A dwarf star and 7 planets are coming in. For the past few hours I've been listening to Patty Brassard, spelled Brass, B-R-A-S-S-A-R-D, a former NASA employee who built the robots which are being used on Fukushima at this moment. She tells of an incoming solar system with 7 planets and says that by August 11th, 2013, the existence of Planet X will be undeniable. She says when this object lines up with our sun on August 17th, 2013, another major earthquake will occur. This time, though, the object will be only 0.32 AU away from the Earth. The unit AU stands for astronomical unit. That's the distance from the Earth to the sun, previously measured at 93 million miles. But Patty says that the Earth is being pulled in toward the sun, and this elongates the orbit and will make summers very, very hot and winters the coldest you've ever experienced. More frighteningly, she said that our electric grid will go down, and when it does, all nuclear power plants will go down too. It is electricity which keeps the reactors cool, and when the electric grid goes, the power plant has only hours on auxiliary power before that too fails. And from what I understand, that means total meltdown. And she says you should locate these nuclear power plants. She said there are over 100 in the United States alone. And make sure that you're not near one. I saw a map. They're all over the East Coast. In fact, I look out the window and I can see one. She said the kill zone in Fukushima was 150 miles. Everybody within 150 miles dies when the nuclear power plants melt down. When I looked out the window and saw one at Palo Verde, I put my head between my legs and kissed my ass goodbye. Patty's in Massachusetts and her basement is at sea level, so she does not intend to survive the passing of Planet X. She said Russian and Israeli troops are here to round up the people who protest and put them into the FEMA camps, that's what they were built for. She also said that those buildings have gas pipes 2 feet thick in diameter and that they don't want the people on the surface to survive. She talks about Auschwitz, and I gather that they're going to gas the people in there. Don't go to a FEMA camp under any circumstances. You will never come out alive, according to Patty. She said that the coffins can accommodate 3 bodies, and if you wind up in a FEMA camp, you might as well be in Auschwitz under Hitler, because they didn't rig gas to these quarters to make sure that you're nice and comfortable. The government never gave a rat's ass about you or your comfort. It's always been about them. They want you dead, and now the truth is coming out from yet another whistleblower. She said all those near the coast are finished. She said we will see the seas rise 200 feet just from the melting of the South Pole, and that the melting is occurring not from the top down, as you might expect from global warming, but from the bottom up. In addition to 200 feet rise in sea levels from the melting of the South Pole, she said that as this object gets closer, it will stop the rotation of the Earth. And as it slows down and the seas keep moving, she says because of the moon, that the moon controls the waters, and that water will continue to move at 1,000 miles per hour, and that anyone living near the coast is finished. Now this follows 3 days of darkness, which she says is caused by an eclipse. This object is between the sun and us. She says that Mars is getting hammered right now with all the debris from the tail, and she recommends that if you want to survive, that you find the highest place on Earth and get underground. Dig a hole. She says bring a camper and bury it under 3 feet of earth. She says rent a backhoe or something to cover it up. I think this is all insanity. What are you going to do? Breathe radioactive air and survive? You're going to go fishing? Catch fish in order to eat? She says the worst of this will be from the end of August until November. That's 4 months. How are you going to survive? September, October, November. 3 months. Each person needs half a gallon of water every day. Fresh water, not radioactive water. I think most of us had better put our heads between our legs and kiss our ass goodbye. All those things I spoke about in my Planet X videos, I have about 40 of them. One of them has over 1 million views. And all those things I talked about turn out to be true. And nobody is sadder than me about that. I wanted it to be wrong. I wanted the earthquakes and volcanoes and sinkholes to be some kind of hoax. But who has the ability to cause earthquakes and volcanoes and sinkholes just to have fun? It's not easy to fake a quake, Jake. This is not a mistake. California, Patty says, will drop into the ocean. It's somewhere between the 17th of August, 2013, and the 26th of August. She says there will be a magnitude 15 quake, centered in Seattle, Washington. So I picked up the phone and called all my friends and told them, and they laughed at me. Oh, that's crazy. Go back to sleep. Patty says her own family has scheduled a family reunion from the 10th of August to the 17th. So that tells you how serious her own family is about her words. I think it's very serious. You don't call in all the ambassadors from all the embassies and close the embassies on a whim. These people have tickets to the underground facilities, and you don't, because you are a dirtbag. That's what I've been saying all along. They treat you, the host of the parasites, like a dirtbag. You paid for all of those underground facilities over the past 50 years, and now you're not invited. And so they expect when the people learn the truth, they're going to be angry. They're going to get their guns, and they're going to try to kill somebody. And you're going to end up killing one of our own who's just uninformed. He thinks he's serving his country. He thinks he's a hero, and you're going to kill him? It'd be better if you talk to him. Talk to all military, talk to all cops, and tell them what's going on, because in the next 10 to 20 days, there's going to be a great awakening by everyone who realizes we are finished. You can't jump in your car and run to get something at the grocery store if the UV A, B, and C are coming down on you. It's deadly. Microwaves will cook your car. She says that microwaves will heat up anything that's metal. It will be red hot from the sun. If California has a 15 magnitude earthquake, do you realize what that will do? And there is nobody to come in and rescue anybody. Remember when all those buildings and freeways fell on people in past earthquakes? Those were 6s and 7s. This is a 15. And every number you go up, it's 10 times more powerful. That means that a 15 is 1 billion times more powerful than a 6. A 6.0 compared to a 15 is 9 numbers up. That's 10 to the 9th power. That's 1 billion times more powerful. Nobody can survive a 15. Nobody. Not 1 billion times more powerful than the ones that brought down the Nimitz freeway and crushed cars as flat as a pancake. All that metal and steel crushed to a pancake with people inside them. I lived in California for about 30 years. I know the San Andreas Fault. I know where it goes in Los Angeles. I know where it goes in San Francisco. But once you get into Oregon and Washington, I don't know much about the San Andreas Fault. I understand that it goes all the way to Alaska. Now, if these plates fracture and California sinks because of lack of support, the pulling away from that plate, the Pacific plate, the tsunami that will come into Los Angeles could be very high. But Patty says we're going to lose much of California. And she says that Tagish Lake, Alaska, will be the new South Pole, that the pole shift has already begun. Tagish Lake, Alaska, I looked it up. There's a Canadian province. Most of Tagish Lake is in that province, BC, might be British Columbia. But as soon as you go over into the U.S. side, Alaska, there's still part of the lake there, a very small part. But she says just north of there will be the new South Pole. Now that's not what Nancy Lieder said. Nancy Lieder had the North Pole off the coast of Brazil and the South Pole dead center in Saudi Arabia, I believe. Maybe it was reversed. Maybe the North Pole was Saudi Arabia and the South Pole was off the coast of Brazil. That's east of Brazil. Now Patty's telling us, with inside information, that Tagish Lake, Alaska will be the new South Pole. I believe that the pole shift is already underway because I've seen the map where the North Pole is moving. It's moving very quickly and it's accelerating. As I recall, the North Pole was headed toward Siberia, and that it would arrive in Siberia in January of 2014. But I'm recalling this from memory. I can't be sure. I didn't look it up. But I looked up Tagish Lake, Alaska. I spun the globe. I turned it upside down so that was the South Pole, and I spun the globe. And I found that Arizona will be in the southern hemisphere, and Australia will be in the northern hemisphere. Imagine that. Arizona will be the land down under. And it's too bad that I'll be dead in just 10 days or so, because I was looking forward to looking up into those southern skies at night and having the experience of seeing things completely different. Now you may recall on my previous Planet X videos, I spoke about microwaves cooking everything when the Van Allen belt collapses, and very, very few people understood that. They tell me they've got a garden, they're going to go camping, they'll be all right. And I knew that they had no idea what a microwave was, or how it cooks you, or how the Van Allen belt protects us, and that's going to collapse because this star is enormous. I always ridiculed those who said that this star was 4 times the size of Jupiter. Patty says that just one of the 7 planets is 4 times the size of Jupiter. She said that the asteroid belt was a planet, and it got hit head-on by one of these things in the tail of Planet X, and it got smashed to pieces, and that Jupiter absorbed most of it, and the asteroid belt is just what's left over. Now imagine that you cannot go outside even to pee for 6 weeks because there will be deadly, she calls them UVA, UVB, and UVC, ultraviolet A, B, and C rays, which kill everything. I never heard of ultraviolet A, B, and C. I knew that ultraviolet rays kill everything, especially the things we depend on. That's why I say, if it kills the things we depend on for survival, how are you going to survive? She says that some people will survive. Maybe those microorganisms will be inside the caves. I don't know. I think life is going to be extremely difficult. I hope that the first to die are those in the underground facilities, the so-called elite and government, because they are the most evil. And all you religious people who think that Jesus is going to save you, well, you're going to find out. Now, this announcement that I'm making to you is the most grave announcement I have ever made about anything. And while Patty gives advice about how to survive, she says, dig a hole, cover it with at least 3 feet of dirt, put some sort of camper or something in there, rent a Caterpillar or something that costs $200 a day, and dig a big hole in your backyard, put your camper in there, and then cover it up with 3 feet of dirt. That's crazy. You won't have food. You won't have water. You won't be able to go outside. How are you going to flush the toilet? If you do survive, you're going to be a totally mind-controlled, chipped slave for the elite if they survive. But she says that these underground facilities, which are now stocked with food that is uncontaminated by Fukushima radiation, because they've been stocking those underground facilities for decades. A truck driver called in, a woman, and said she delivered things to Denver Airport, the underground facility there, and they were labeled just general merchandise. So there's first-hand testimony that these underground facilities were stocked. But Patty says that these underground facilities are going to rupture and water is going to flood in and drown most of the people that are the so-called elite. Now, they left us up here to die like a bunch of dirt bags. I imagine that they have cameras everywhere to watch what's going on, and they're going to be down there in their cushy bunkers watching us die and suffer and squirm. And if a fracture occurs and water floods in, I would like to have a camera to watch them drown like rats. If that water is from the Pacific Ocean, maybe it will be full of radiation, and maybe it will contaminate all of their fresh food down there. Maybe the air that comes in will be full of radiation, because all over America, tests are showing that our air is just full of radiation. And maybe this is why the French psychic, could not see past 2012. Maybe that's why all those who did time travel said that there was a barrier after 2012. When pressed, the French psychic said, 2 possible reasons: we have a war with aliens, or I'm dead, and that's why I can't see beyond 2012. Well, you've got strontium in the air, which causes bone cancer, and plutonium, which affects all the organs and tissues. And thousands are already dying from the radiation from Fukushima. Remember that Fukushima is about 10 times worse than Chernobyl. Chernobyl was 180 tons of radioactive material, and Fukushima was 1,760 tons. So that's almost 10 times as much. Fukushima is 9 or 10 times as bad as Chernobyl. I've got some shrimp and salmon in the freezer, and I think I'm going to go cook it while the electricity is still on. I already ate all the butter pecan ice cream, and if you have any ice cream that you can't eat, call me. I'll be over there faster than you can say, "Those dirty bastards in government saved themselves and left us out here to die." How long does it take to say that? How do you like this? The U.S. military is guarding the DUMBs so that you can't get in. They will shoot to kill. They will kill Americans to prevent them from getting into the underground facilities. Well, I don't want to breathe the same air those people breathe. I might wind up like them. So no thanks. I'm not interested in going into a DUMB. These military have already been tested to see if they are loyal to the head Nazi, and they proved that they will follow orders. They will kill anyone they are told to kill. And they think they're heroes. Their reality is not the same as your reality. They live in an illusionary world. I would consider it mental illness, because they don't know reality. Soon all the banks will be closed, and you won't be able to get any money out. And I have been advocating that you get your money out of the bank anyway, and what I have seen on this video with Patty is that the money you hold will only be worth something for a little while longer. And soon nobody will be interested in your money. They're not going to trade real food for fake money. We have been expecting a currency collapse anyway. I just had no idea that it would turn out like this. If you have a house that's made of cement block and a roof that's not made of wood, that's valuable. And there isn't any amount of money that I would trade for such a house. Now the value system changes. If you've got a caterpillar, a bulldozer, a backhoe, this is extremely valuable. This is worth millions of dollars, even if you paid $6,000 for it, because this is the difference between life and death. Perhaps. I don't know what you call life after something like this. You come out of your nest and breathe radioactive material that will be in the air for thousands of years. You call that life? Look up Patty Brassard, Brassard, on YouTube. Watch the videos, the interviews. There's one with Veritas Radio out of Tucson, and that interviewer is very smart. The sound quality is pretty good. There's another one where they talk about the kill shot, and they put the date August 5th, 2013. The sound quality is very poor. Very, very poor. It's difficult to hear the announcer. It's difficult to hear his guest. There was no attention whatsoever given to this video on quality, and if you're able to get anything out of it, that's great. There's a lot of blank space, so it means the audio was not edited. And because of these reasons, it's not a very good quality video. But it's the best you have at this time. You might wonder what is going to happen to Patty. Well, she said she's old, and she's already lived far longer than she expected to. She's falling apart because she carried an M16 across her chest, and the bullets were either depleted uranium or enriched uranium. Can you imagine the U.S. government having soldiers carry radioactive material so close to the chest? This is disgusting, disgusting. And this story should spread to all military so they know how the government really thinks of them. Listen to Patty's testimony. She was in Iraq. She was in communications. These lives meant nothing to the Nazis. Nothing. They were pawns, and the military should understand that. I didn't know that they were using enriched uranium. I knew they were using depleted uranium, but I thought it was only for shells. She said when they are trying to penetrate the ground, they use enriched uranium. These are war crimes. That's who your government is. They're war criminals. They're false flag inside job terrorists. And Patty says the last 4 major terrorist attacks were all inside jobs. And it was done in order to take the guns because they can't pay the Chinese in gold, and so they offered them coastal properties. The Chinese wanted coastal properties, but they said, you disarm the people first. That's what Patty said. That shows you she has a lot of inside information. Now remember, August to November, about 4 months, will be the roughest part of the passing of Planet X. She said if you want to save yourself, it's already too late. She produced some very believable images to support her claims, and she claims to be able to access computers at NASA and EPA and other government agencies. And she revealed that NASA is not a government agency, it's a private corporation. She said it's no more government than the Federal Reserve is. There's one more thing I would like to tell you. She said that 6 astronomers or scientists, these are top astronomers and scientists, had decided that they were going to talk and tell the people, and all 6 of them were killed recently. I haven't heard of it. I don't know who the scientists are, but I think that Patty might be murdered soon also. I would not be surprised. In fact, I am also looking for a bullet, but I'm old and it doesn't matter if they kill me. I don't want to die of thirst. I don't want to die frying under a microwave sky or dying under UV light, ultraviolet light. This is not for me. I'm going to continue my effort to inform and let the chips fall.